Hello, Cleveland. Welcome to the Dawgland podcast. I am your host, Anthony Joki. I got Jackson McCurry alongside me. We are just a week and a few days away from the NFL draft. And as we talked about on the last episode, this has dragged on way too long. We are both ready for the draft, ready to get this thing over with. The top of the draft has kind of become a little bit more clear picture wise with who we think the Browns are going to take. But we did have some wonderful news over the weekend, and the Browns signed a quarterback by the name of Joe Flacco. They have brought back Joe Flacco on a 1 year deal for $4 million, which incentives can put that up to $13 million. I would imagine there's per game bonuses, time played, all of that, wrapped into that contract. But Jack, we were wondering about the quarterback position. We kind of talked about last week. We only have Kenny Pickett on the roster at quarterback. I'm not even counting Deshaun at this point anymore. But only having Kenny, we were wondering, and of course, this comes like a day after we do the podcast, which these things always do. Um,
Always.
but we were wondering, are they gonna wait till after the draft to add somebody else? Because we assume at some point they are going to draft a quarterback, and we still think about that, and we're gonna talk about that here in a little bit. But um, we were talking about when they were going to add a quarterback. We kind of thought maybe it still could be Kirk Cousins based on who they take in the draft. But before the draft here, they have signed Joe Flacco to a 1 year deal and bring back um, Joe, who had a great season with us in 2023, leading us to the playoffs after Watson got hurt. It was quite the magical run that ended down in Houston in the first round of the playoffs. But what are your thoughts about the Browns bringing back Joe Flacco on a 1 year deal?
Honestly, I was stunned. Like, I was at work and it comes across and it says a reunion in Cleveland. It was the Adam Schefter tweet, and I was like, "Who did they sign?" I'm trying to think, like, I'm trying to piece together who it could be, and I'm scrolling and I'm scrolling. It says Joe Flacco, and I was like, I was amazed because I just didn't think he was going to be a legit option. I know Mary Kay had suggested it like back right before free agency started. I know Tony Grossi alluded it to it, but I just never thought it was going to happen. I thought the way it ended with the playoff game in Houston and the way they just didn't even consider him last offseason to bring him back, I just thought that was kind of the bridge was kind of burned. But it clearly wasn't. Jimmy Haslam had made a comment at the owners meeting saying like they love Joe. They were considering him as one of the options. And Anthony, I think ultimately it came down to Atlanta was being so stubborn about moving Kirk Cousins, what the cost would be. There was rumors out there that they wanted a third round pick in return, even to consider like eating some of the contract that Kirk has. And I just think the Browns ultimately said we got to move forward. Like Atlanta's holding firm on what they want in terms of trade compensation. And I think the Browns just finally said we're going to move forward. And I think it was apparent that Joe uh, wanted to come back to Cleveland. I'd always said that. The way the 2023 season ended, um, like he turned out, I think they said the Giants, and there was another team that had shown interest in him. And I think he loved Cleveland so much, just as much as we loved it when he was here. Obviously, the end did not go the way we wanted against Houston, but that was always there. And now he's back, and we're ramping up for a quarterback competition between him and Kenny Pickett, and perhaps the draft pick, whoever that ultimately will be, come next weekend. But having Joe back, it felt pretty good because you've seen how much excitement this it generated in the fan base. I heard radio stations that weren't even sports talk stations talking about the excitement of Joe being back with the Browns, and I know I'm excited to have him back. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, I was across the country, so I was kind of, doing my own thing. I was out in Seattle for the weekend, and when I saw that, I was like half awake because I was just waking up, and I'm like, the hell, kind of a thing, and I was very surprised, and it seems like very quickly. Flacco fever was a thing a couple years ago, and it kind of seems like that's starting to pick up again around here amongst the fan base. Now, I don't expect that same type of magical run that we had a couple years ago. I think that would be foolish of us to expect him to go on that kind of run. But I think what it does give the Browns is all right, now you have Joe Flacco, now you have Kenny Pickett. Between those two guys, one of them is going to be your starter going into next season. The third guy is probably going to come from the draft, and I would imagine there's going to be a fourth guy at some point, whether that's a free agent or an undrafted free agent or whatever, to have in camp as well. And that third guy, whoever it is that they draft, whether it's Jalen Milrow, whether it's uh, Tyler Shuck, whether it's Jackson Dart, whether it's Will Howard, whether it's another one of these quarterbacks in the draft, that guy has the opportunity now, barring any sort of injuries to Flacco or Kenny Pickett and Kenny Pickett, to sit for the year, and that gives them an opportunity when because they talked about how the quarterback thing could be a multi-year process. So if they spend a draft pick on a quarterback here, it gives them the opportunity to sit the quarterback, hopefully for the whole year, let him learn, not rush him out there too early. Which you look at these quarterbacks after Cam Ward and maybe even Shedeur Sanders, there he might need to spend some time sitting and not start week one. There will be a lot of pressure for him to start week one, but these other guys are going to need some time. And what this gives the Browns is some time. Uh, when you have Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope is that, whoever they ultimately draft, and you bring up the good point, Anthony. They said it could be a multi-year thing. The Browns may have only really liked Cam Ward, maybe be the only one that they would have considered perhaps moving up, flipping picks with Tennessee to get, but Tennessee's obviously dead set, as far as we know, to take him next week with the number one pick in the draft. They might not be interested in these other quarterbacks, despite bringing in Shador, despite bringing in Jalen Milrow, Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck, among the guys that they brought in for time 30 visits, gone and done private workouts with them. But they might not be dead set on seeing any of these guys developing into a potential starting quarterback in this league. And I think that's why, even though it was Jimmy Haslam saying this could be a multi-year project. They might look at 2026 and say, hey, we like Drew Aller. We like Garrett Nussmeyer. We like Clint. Is it Clint Kubiak? I forget the guy's name. He's from Clemson. It's escaping me at the moment, but they might like one of those guys. But then you also look if they draft a Jalen Milrow, a Jackson Dart, a Will Howard, whoever on day two of the draft, or maybe even with a trade up into the late first round, the expectation would be hopefully you can sit behind Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett for your first year, and then come 2026, barring anything unforeseen like Kenny Pickett having a revitalization of his career, something else coming up for the Browns, then 2026 comes around, you could see one of those guys, take the torch and become the next starting quarterback for the Browns. That's the hope. My hope is they find somebody else that they can put on the practice squad and just hopefully we don't have to see the rookie at all. We've seen how that's gone here since 99, where there's been numerous years where we started 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks. But I think the hope is with Flacco and Pickett there in the room now, whoever we draft, Anthony, next weekend can ultimately come in and sit until they're officially ready. Because I think that's one of the biggest things over the years is some guys get forced out there too soon, not only just in Cleveland, but around the NFL. Make sure the guy is ready to go out there and be able to lead the football team. Because if you throw him out there early and he makes mistakes, it ruins their mental game. And I think that's one of the biggest things when it comes to the quarterback position.
And I think you saw that with DTR in his rookie year. There was that thing where he started given less than 24 hours notice against the Baltimore Ravens in terrible weather here in Cleveland because Watson couldn't go that week. So you don't want that for your rookie quarterback. I would imagine if they do select one, and they might not. Depending on how the board falls, they could still not take a quarterback in this draft if their plan is to, go into next offseason looking for that guy in the draft, or maybe there's still a free agent out there. Um, that could fit, could kind of fill in as the third guy. They don't have to come out with a quarterback in this draft. I think they're going to draft one, but they don't have to. Um, and I think that's what we kind of want to get into here is we want to talk about the 33rd pick because as of right now, obviously they picked number two, but they also had the first pick in the second round at pick number 33. And there are a variety of different options in terms of the route that they can go with this pick. We've talked about all of the needs that the Browns have: running back, offensive line, tight end, edge, linebacker, cornerback, safety, like
Wide receiver.
wide receiver. Pick a position, um, the Browns need it. And, I think that kinda, bodes well sitting in this position at number 33 because if you get to that spot, you could take the best player available despite, position, and he'll probably fit somewhere on his roster and be a starter. There is the option to trade back up into the first round, to grab a guy, maybe in the 28 to 32 range to where you guarantee yourself, that fifth year option with said player. And if it's at a position, like edge or corner, or running back, quarterback, those positions are important. And getting that additional fifth year, uh, really helps you in the long term. So that option is there. And also trading down from 33. That pick is very valuable. And a lot of teams, I wouldn't expect them to trade down, into the 50, 60 range from pick 33. I could see, 38 to 45 somewhere in there. But that's an option as well. So there are a variety of different options, what they could do with this pick at 33. Um, let's kind of go position by position here and look at the different options of who they could select with those picks. And let's start with quarterback. Obviously, we just talked about a little bit. So, guys like Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck, Jalen Milrow. I don't think a guy like, Will Howard would go that high. But, looking at, those few options, if they want to take a quarterback in that spot, where would you lean out of those guys?
It would be Jalen Milrow. Like I see why people like Jackson Dart, but I'm just not fully sold on him as a QB prospect. I think he does have the physical tools. I don't know what that offense in Ole Miss suit gets him ready for the National Football League. He would be one of those guys, Anthony, that you would hope you could redshirt for a year just to get him accustomed to your system, accustomed to you know the NFL style of offense. You just like he does, and it's funny because Todd McShay said, "You see a little Josh Allen in this game." Well, guess who was one of Josh Allen's biggest critics back in 2018? This guy. Did I think Josh Allen was going to turn into the MVP he was? Not at all. You see some of the way Jackson Dart plays the game. You just think um, you could see the Josh Allen tendencies, but he's not 6'5". He's not 250 pounds the way Josh Allen is. Could Dart turn into a NFL caliber quarterback? Absolutely. I think it all comes down to fit. I just think like New Orleans is the perfect spot for him. Um, and he fits the type of quarterback that Kellen Moore has. But if I'm gonna bet on a quarterback, not outside of Cam Ward and Shador Sanders, I'll bet on Jalen Milrow just because of his athleticism, first and foremost. He does have a strong arm. And I just think, if you can get him to sit behind a Kenny Pickett and a Joe Flacco for a year, reunite him with his offensive coordinator, Tommy Reese, and then let him develop. continue to develop, continue to let Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Reese groom him into the quarterback that they want for this offense to be. I'm betting on Jalen Milroe every day. Tyler Shuck, I see what people like in him as well. Um, the age does not bother me as much as it bothers some people on here. I think everybody gets the Brandon Whedon vibes, but I think that was just, you can't compare the two, honestly. Brandon Whedon was 28 going on 29. Chuck's 25 going on 26. I think the durability concerns are a major factor because he only had one solid season of production because of all the other years he was either banged up or sitting behind someone in college. But if I had to bet on those three, I would take Jalen Milrow.
Yeah, and Tyler Shuck has never gotten caught underneath an American flag that we know of so far. So he at least has that going for him, despite his age. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be upset with any of those guys. Obviously, if they want to take a quarterback, I'm trying to trade up a few spots just to get that fifth year option if they really believe that's going to be the guy. Dart, you know, sit for a year, maybe two. Like any of these guys, like if you could sit them for a couple years, that would be ideal. But you know, you really don't get that luxury. I think in the NFL of time, especially where this coaching staff is, this front office is currently with how things have gone. I don't know how much time that they have to find this. It seems like um, with Haslam's comments about Watson and everything that, this has maybe bought him a couple more years to try and figure everything out here. So who knows? I think that, sitting for a year would be great, and you would expect him to start the 2026 season. But who knows how things turn out? I don't foresee any of us thinking that Kenny Pickett's going to have a Sam Darnold type year this year. I don't see that coming. It's a possibility, but I don't think that. Maybe somebody like Stefanski, who has done wonders with the quarterbacks, besides Deshaun Watson, and that's not on Stefanski. Um, what he's done with these other quarterbacks that he has had, whether it was here or back in Minnesota, um, he's been able to get the most out of some of these guys. So, um, if he's able to do that with Pickett, that's great. But if it's not Pickett, if it's Joe Flacco out there starting or one of these guys that they draft, um, you know, that would be ideal if it's one of the guys that they draft here. So, let's move on to running back. I feel, Browns fans are, and including myself, like, we're waiting to see if Nick Chubb will come back. I feel like there's no doubt that we are going to draft a running back next week at some point. So let's look at a few of the options at number 30, 33 here. I don't think Omarion Hampton is going to get out of the first round, but if it's a possibility that he could, and that could be an option at 32. But some of these other guys, Cam Scatterbo from Arizona State, Dylan Sampson, Caleb Johnson, Quinton Junkins, probably the guys that could go at 33. Maybe Travion Henderson if you really like him that much. Um, so if you are looking at those running backs, I would imagine Hampton would be the choice. But putting him aside, the that other group there, what are your thoughts?
I mean, this is one of the funnest, most fun, not funnest, most fun position groups in this draft because it's so deep. Like I can go on day three, Anthony, and I can find you a guy that's going to come in and start and could start and be a big contributor. Like that's how deep this running back class is. But when you talk about guys that could be options at 33, um, I think I don't know. I think Omarion Hampton would be like the no brainer, obviously. Any of these other guys, like if you mentioned trading back from 33, if they slid down to say pick 40, like they move with New Orleans and are like, if you want to move up for Jackson Dart, let's make a deal because we feel confident we can slide back, gain an asset, maybe get a Jalen Milrow. But if they decide, hey, we're not going to take a quarterback right now, we're going to take a running back. you look at the Ohio State running backs, Henderson, who can do it all. We've seen it. Great runner, uh, great out of the backfield as a pass catcher. And then Quinshawn Judkins, who I get like Kareem Hunt vibes when I watch him on tape. I think that would be another exciting option. Either one of them. We know for sure Judkins came in on a top 30 visit, so I'd give him the edge in terms of the Browns doing their homework on him. Um, like Caleb Johnson, great local product. Had put up great numbers at Iowa. Cam Scadaboo, who had one of the unbelievable playoff games where he caught a touchdown, he ran in for a touchdown, and he threw a touchdown pass. Great physical runner. And then I think Dylan Sampson's another one of those guys, Anthony, which would probably be third round, maybe even early day three if he were to slip a little bit. He is a perfect running back for this zone blocking scheme that we're going back to. He was very effective at Tennessee in that type of offense. He would be a perfect fit for the Browns. But if we're looking at just 33, I think it would be either one of the Ohio State running backs, Henderson or Judkins.
Yeah, I would love one of them. I think Judkins is going to be really damn good in the NFL, and you can probably say that about a handful of these guys, running back wise, which does make this very intriguing in terms of the running back. So, look, I wouldn't be opposed to anyone. Obviously, we need one with where the running back room is at the moment. Um, and if you draft one, hopefully they can still bring back Nick Chubb at some point. Um, and you don't have to like fully count on him. I don't think if you bring him back, you would expect him to be your lead back. Um, based on still having Ford and then drafting one of these guys. You can sprinkle in Nick Chubb a little bit and um, use him sparingly on like a pitch count to where he would be most effective. Um, so you bring in one of these guys to maybe be your workhorse running back. Um, that would probably be ideal for this offense at this time. All right, looking at tight ends, there's maybe only a couple guys here at the pick 33 that would probably be worth it. I don't think Colston Loveland's getting out of the first round. It could be pretty close in terms of him being available. Would love him if he does. But you look at a couple of these other guys, Elijah Aurora, Mason Taylor. I don't think Harold Fannin would go that high. But
No.
those are a few of the guys that if they decide to go tight end, and maybe even a trade back scenario um, as well to grab one of these guys.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that we're going to draft a tight end in the top 100. I feel like I can say that pretty confidently just because we've brought in Taylor, Arroyo, Fannin Jr., and Terrence Ferguson on top 30 visits. Mason Taylor's starting to get some late round one buzz. Philadelphia at 32 is the guy that they keep mentioning, like because Dallas Goddard's potentially on his way out. I know he's been rumored around as a trade candidate probably next weekend. Mason Taylor, like the son of Jason Taylor, Hall of Fame pass rusher. It, he is just a physical freak at the tight end position, and he's starting to creep up the board. So I feel like if he's an option at 32, like I would imagine maybe he's in the cards for 33. The Browns took a chance on Njoku, was a physical freak. Obviously, he was raw at the position. I think Mason Taylor is a little more refined at the tight end position than Njoku was back in 2017. So I think he's an option. And Arroyo is probably a guy that would be like a trade back from 33 candidate. Maybe the Browns are just as high on him as they could be on a Mason Taylor. So it wouldn't shock me if this is these are some of the guys in the mix if they're still on the board come Friday night when the Browns go on the clock at 33. So Njoku is coming up on his last year of his contract. Maybe they extend him. Maybe they try to pair him up with another one of these young tight ends. But I think Taylor and Arroyo could definitely be in the mix at 33.
When you look at the edge position here, there are again handful of guys in that realm. Michael Williams out of Georgia, Nick Scourton, Texas A&M, Landon Jackson, Arkansas. uh, Princely from Mississippi, uh, JTT, maybe more of a trade down possibility. I'm not sure where Jack Sawyer's going to go. He's kind of been all over the place in that second round that I've seen. But you know, if you and we're doing this based on the fact that we think they're going to take Travis Hunter number two. Like I think we probably should have prefaced this conversation with that.
Right.
Um, so you get your corner, wide receiver, wherever they put him at number two. And if you want to continue to build on the defense and get somebody to go opposite of Miles Garrett, edge is definitely a possibility here at 33. And then this is another position where I would try to trade up a couple spots from 33 to get them on that fifth year option. Um, but looking at this handful of edge rushers sitting here at this spot, is there a specific route that you would favor over others?
Well, we both have mentioned our love for Landon Jackson, who has come down a little bit. I think he was looked at one point, Anthony, as a late round one, early second round pick. He's 49th on mock draft databases consensus big board. So he might be a trade back candidate. Nick Scorton, we know the Browns brought in for a top 30 visit. So maybe he's in that window of 33, or like you mentioned, moving up in the late round one. I could see Donovan Ariziaku. I think that's how you say his name. I'm probably off on it. Um, he's like right there in that late one buzz. But he's like he'd be a guy maybe the Browns can move up for long, lengthy, athletic edge rusher. James Pierce is a guy that was top 15 consensus at one point. Now he's starting to slip into the late first round. That could be a guy, but there is some off the field concerns, along with Mike Green out of Marshall. So I don't know how much the Browns are interested in those guys. Hopefully they've done their homework on those guys if they fall into a position to get him. But as far as the rest of the guys, I know you mentioned JTT and Jack Sawyer. I think those would be trade back guys or potentially trade up from 67 if the Browns are interested in either one. We know Sawyer was in, or I've heard, I wouldn't say I know for sure, but I've heard Sawyer was in on a top 30 visit probably when he threw the first pitch at the Guardians home opener. But those would probably be guys you'd watch moving up from 67 for.
All right, let's move to cornerback. Let's skip
Well,
corner because
I don't,
we,
yeah.
we 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 don't know where if they take Hunter, if he's gonna be wide receiver, corner. So we'll skip corner for now.
Well,
Uh,
according to him, he's going to be both. So,
but let's do safety. Because
yeah,
that is definitely a position of need at the moment, and guys that could be on the board here. Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State, who had ACL injury last year, looking to come back this year. Xavier Watts from Notre Dame, Nick Emenwari from South Carolina, and you could probably throw um, Andrew Makuba in there, but probably more towards the later half of the second round there, and sort of a trade down. So when you look at those guys, obviously Winston has a big question mark coming back from that ACL injury that he had. Um, which route would you lean towards if safety is the route that they want to go?
I mean, if Eman Imanowari is available, I think that would be a no brainer at 33, just because he's a top 25 consensus player. Looks like he would go probably in the 20s, but if he were to slip, I think like that's a no brainer for the Browns to pair him up with Grant Delpit. Other than that, like a lot of these guys are mid to late second round, third round guys. Like you mentioned Winston, he's coming off the ACL, so you're betting on what he did pre ACL, and if he's going to be able to come back from that fully healthy, like he'd be a guy. Makuba is a guy I mocked a lot. I think that was more of a third round guy. He did not test well, and he's a little bit undersized. But yeah, Xavier Watts would be a trade back from 33 candidate. Um, I don't know. I just the safety class, like I haven't looked honestly at like these safeties so high. I could see the Browns taking one high. Like they took Delpit in the top 40 back in 2020. Um, I haven't really looked at these guys enough. I looked more at day three safeties. Um, but yeah, I mean, Emmanuel Wari is like the no brainer if he were to slip to 33, and then the rest of the guys, like maybe you take it 67 or 94, but I don't have a good feeling on the safeties. I haven't really looked too much at the day two guys, honestly.
When you look at Amanda Wardy, the thing that sticks out is he scored a perfect 10 uh, in RAS and ranked number one safety of all time in RAS. So,
Yep. Athletic
uh,
monster.
yeah, he's a 6'3" guy, can fly over the football field. And if he's there at 33, definitely has to be in the conversation for the Browns who take him at that spot because safety, as it stands right now, definitely position of need for the Browns. So the only other spot I could see, I know they kind of have it stopgap right now, but offensive tackle, I think is another possibility for the Browns, and in that spot, you're looking at Josh Connerly, uh, Grady Zabel, which I think he might be a guard, from what I have seen, if I remember right, unless I'm getting him confused with somebody else, at
You
the
said you
moment.
said Zabel.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's more of an interior guy.
And then I don't think Josh Simmons would fall that far, to
He
33,
might,
but it
based on the medical rechecks, honestly. Like if
so
he like, yeah.
definitely a few options there. Um, I don't think that they would take one at 33 unless there's one guy that they really like. I think with how the O line is right now at the tackle position, I could see more of a day three guy, a guy that you could sit for a year and kind of slowly bring him along, and play. Heaven forbid if he has to due to injury. Um, but if they were to take one here at 33, any specific route that you would prefer?
I mean, it would be Connerly. Like I said, if Simmons, like his medical recheck is not promising, maybe he slips out of the first round and I think he'd go into the conversation. For what we know, Anthony, like outside of seeing these guys at the Senior Bowl, the only guy we know that they've done any extensive homework on is Will Campbell. And that would be like a trade back from two scenario, I presume. Like if they flip picks with New England, like Campbell's obviously would be in the cards at four. Like I think, like you said, I think they take a tackle maybe late day two, early day three. I mean, there's some options there with Ozzy Trapilo, Anthony Belton, Cam Williams. Like there was a lot of tackles on day three that were at the Senior Bowl, and maybe the Browns started doing their homework there, and maybe they take a developmental one in day three. But if Connerly's there, like he has to be in the discussion because he stood out at Oregon. The first time like I really watched him was how he went up against Abdul Carter in the Big Ten championship. Um, and I think like yes, there's that viral clip of him getting absolutely worked by Mike Green at the Senior Bowl. But Connerly is solid. I think he can develop into a solid starting left tackle in this league. And if he's there at 33, he's definitely going to be among the players in discussion for the Browns.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. And as we kind of talked about, being at pick 33 and what the Browns are roster wise, it could be any number of 20 players that they could take at that spot. It just kind of depends on how the board falls in front of them. If they want to trade back up, trade back down, pick at 33. Um, this draft, from what we've seen and what we've heard, I will reference back to that Schefter quote from a couple months ago. Like anybody can go from 10 to 40, and
10 to 50.
was it 50?
It was 10 to 50. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean that's a wide gap of players. With where the Browns are sitting at, right in the middle of that. So you know, we obviously won't know until the board starts to fall. Um, I think we have a good idea of maybe more of a few specific routes that they would go. I think at that spot, quarterback, running back, I'll probably top couple options. Edge probably the third in that spot. If I'll rearrange it and say quarterback, edge, running back. I'll put it in that order. But with where you're sitting at, I would expect those positions and one of those guys, hopefully not quarterback, but edge, running back should be able to step in right away and contribute next.
Yeah, I think this draft, Anthony, you remember when I think it was just 2 years ago when Detroit took Jameer Gibbs and Jack Campbell, and everybody was like, "What the hell are they doing?"
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be that kind of first round where guys are gonna go and we're all gonna be stunned because we've been looking at Kuiper, Jeremiah, McShay, Brugler's rankings, and we're gonna be like, this is a reach. Well, what Shifter said, when it's from 10 to 50, you're all kind of getting the same value. It's all going to come down to fit. And if like say, and I think it starts at 9. Like if Jackson Dart is who New Orleans wants, if he goes at 9, I would not be stunned because it's all about fit. And I think he fits their offense better than Shador fits their offense with Kellen Moore in New Orleans. I think it's just going to be a crazy first round. Like I think it even starts at 4 because everybody assumes Will Campbell, but they might take Membu, the tackle from Missouri. They might take somebody else. They might take like another. I think it's after the top 3 is I think it's going to be Ward, Hunter, Carter. I think the chaos is going to begin after that,
I,
and it's going to be an exciting first round.
I could totally see Mason Graham at 4 to the Patriots. You got um, Mike Vrabel, big defensive guy, as your head coach. So if they want to go defense, they can go that route as well. I think the real interesting thing here, and I know we've kind of touched on it before. If Jackson Dart goes 9 to New Orleans and goes in front of Shador Sanders, at what point, if the Browns like him, do you try to get back up into the first round to get him? Like how far do you think you know you would have to go up to get him? Um, yeah, I can certainly see the Jets could shock us all and take a quarterback at 7. But you look at the rest of the first round, the Jets, New Orleans, um, the Colts could pull a stunner. If they're really not sold on Richardson.
Yeah,
Um, I don't want to say Arizona, Seattle. I know they just signed Sam Darnold to that deal, but who knows? We just saw last year Kirk Cousins signed that deal in Atlanta, and then they go draft Penix.
yeah.
So, um, the Steelers, possibility. Um, the Detroit Lions.
No, I don't think so.
I don't know if they take. It'd be. They shocked us a couple years ago with Gibbs and Campbell.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if they took a quarterback to try and prepare for life after Goff if they don't fully convince he's the guy to get him over that hump. Um, so like, at what point do you think that they? How far do you think they'd have to go up to get Shador if he starts to fall a little bit in the first?
I'm gonna go back to what Todd McShay said last week when he did his latest mock draft. I think 15 is where you start. I think if he slips past New Orleans at 9, I think you start calling because I don't think like San Francisco, they're interesting to me. Like they haven't extended Purdy yet. I know they're working on it, but Dion played there. Like I could see something there. I could see him fitting in with Kyle Shanahan. Obviously, if I think he fits Kevin Stefanski's offense, he can fit Kyle Shanahan's offense. Dallas isn't taking him. Miami, mm, I'm gonna bite my tongue on Miami because I think that
And
could be a possibility as
I
well.
skipped over Miami. Like I thought about it when I was listening to teams. I kind of thought about it for a second. I'm like, maybe not, but who knows?
Yeah, but I feel like 15 is the starting point because Atlanta only has like 5 picks. Obviously, like they don't need a quarterback. They drafted Penix. Like they could get a haul from the Giants or the Browns because those would be like the obvious 2 teams. Unless Shador goes 3, which that whole thing this week going with them working out all these quarterbacks again kind of regenerated that buzz. But I think 15 is the starting point. Obviously, you work with Arizona. Like you try to go with those two. If Shador's slipping, because Cincinnati's not going to deal with you because they're not going to help you get a quarterback. Seattle could take a quarterback, like you said, because I think Darnold you can get out of the deal after 1 year, and then like Tampa you can work with. Denver you might be able to try to work a deal with. But you got to jump the Steelers. I think you got to jump the Steelers and the Seahawks because I feel like those are the two teams that could ultimately draft a quarterback. We know the connections there with Shador and Pittsburgh. But yeah, I would start at 15 and work my way down if they are ultimately interested in moving up for Shador. But who knows? Maybe they're not. Maybe they got their eyes set on a Dart or a Milrow or something. We'll see how it all shakes out next week.
Would you be surprised at all if Shador is not the second, not the third, but like quarterback taken? Dart in front of him, Duck in front of him, Milrow in front.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't be shocked because you're starting to hear a lot of buzz. Like I think it was Peter Schrager today said there's one team that has Tyler Shuck listed as a first round quarterback, and it said it's a GM he knows really well, which makes me think it's the Rams with Les Snead because he's very tight with Snead and McShay, uh, and that whole Rams organization. Like there's some teams I heard today, some teams value Milrow as a first round quarterback, some value him as a third or fourth round quarterback. So it's like I said, this draft is going to get crazy after like the third pick, maybe even the third pick, because if they draft Shador, then I think chaos will ensue. But I think this is going to be one of the wild first rounds I think we've seen in draft history, and it's going to be interesting. Like I think there's teams that value Dart. We've been hearing that for months, so I don't know. I'm just ready because I think like once we make our pick, like I feel like the chaos is going to ensue behind us, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it should be fun with what we're going to do because obviously we'll talk about the Browns selection, but just being able to sit down, talk draft, and react to everything else after the Browns make their pick, I think is going
Yeah,
to be our big source of entertainment on Thursday night. Obviously, it's going to be great with whoever they select at number two. We assume that's going to be Travis Hunter at the moment, but um, you know, this is going to be like the Royal Rumble, right? It's going to be all right. Who's coming out next? Who's coming out next? Who's coming out next? Here's the countdown, and
yeah.
we're gonna get those wild surprises. Be like, whoa, what the hell's going on? Kind of a thing. So I'm excited for the draft. Obviously, it's kind of like we talked about, dragged on a little too long. As it seems to, these last couple of weeks have been kind of a sludge to get through. As we head towards the draft next week, but we're almost there. We have what will be our final mock draft Monday of this draft cycle coming up for you next week. And just for fun, maybe after the draft, we'll do a way too early mock draft Monday for 2026. I might have to convince Jack to do that, but we'll see.
Uh, You don't even have to ask. I'll do
Okay, all right.
it.
We'll do that after the draft just for fun. Um, and we're trying to put together a live show uh for us to be on draft night, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. Be sure to uh, give me a follow at Anthony Jokey, give Jack a follow at Jack McCurry08, give the Dogland a follow on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, we greatly appreciate it. We're doing very well over on YouTube, and all these videos have been wonderful. And we appreciate everybody for watching. Uh, until next time, always remember, we'll talk to you for Mock Draft Monday, but always remember, go Browns.